I'm Andrea Johnson. I'm the Grant and Financial Education Coordinator for the Office of Consumer Credit Commissioner. Today, we're going to be discussing budgeting and building wealth in the new year. This webinar is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. If you ask me questions during this chat and I can't answer them, I will try to get them offline. I would just like to say hello to the person who is watching from Tomball this morning. My husband is from Tomball, so I know exactly where you're calling in from or watching from this morning. And I hope we're ready to have a great conversation about budgeting. Again, if you have any insight, if you have any advice you'd like to share, go ahead and put that in the question box. And that way we can share it with the whole group, okay? Before we get started talking about budgeting and building wealth, I just want to say a little bit about the Texas Office of Consumer Credit Commissioner. The OCCC licenses and regulates non-depository institutions such as pawn shops, payday loan lenders, and registered creditors. So we are all over the state of Texas. You see us everywhere, but you don't even realize it. We protect and safeguard consumers against abusive and deceptive lending practices. We educate consumers like yourself and creditors about your rights and responsibilities. If you have any problems, any comments, any complaints, anything you need to address, consider regarding any of our licensed and registered and regulated industries, you can contact the Office of Consumer Credit Commissioner. We have a consumer assistance helpline. Someone is waiting there to help you. They're also available to go over any contract terms that you don't understand before you get into any financial contracts that you're not too clear about. We provide financial education through the Financial Education Coordinator, that's me, Andrea, informational seminars and webinars like this one, and I used to do these in person. It was a whole lot of fun. Financial education materials, which I have the handouts today, which are also available on occc.texas.gov. We provide public service announcements and press releases, and we partner with other education-oriented organizations across the state of Texas. Now, this is something I like to mention because being the grant coordinator, I'm responsible for the Texas Financial Education Endowment Grant for the Office of Consumer Credit Commissioner. And what this means is every 2 years, nonprofit organizations from across the state of Texas apply for funding, and we grant them funding for financial programs in their communities. And this is all across Texas. And those programs are offered at a low or no cost for people in their community, and it's for K through 12, adult financial education, and financial care. Something that's really important to me. If you know anyone who's already working in that field, who, a nonprofit, this year some of our recipients are Family Elder Care, Girl Scouts of Northeast Texas. We're just kind of all over the map of Texas when it comes to our grant work. So we, pass that information along to anyone that might need it. We're talking about budgeting and building wealth today. Again, this webinar is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. We just started a new year, and yes, we are well into January. At least it feels that way. But the top 10 New Year's resolutions come in exercise, losing weight, those two are both on mine, getting organized, learning a new skill or hobby, living life to the fullest, and what is that one right there close to the middle? Save more and spend less. So finances usually always, and money always find their way into New Year's resolutions. And how you achieve those resolutions, these goals, these steps to achieving your New Year's resolutions has a lot to do with achieving a good financial picture. It has a lot to do with budgeting. It has a lot to do with your credit. It has a lot to do with building wealth. Because when you achieve your New Year's resolutions, those steps also apply to achieving your financial goals. You need to prepare. You need to stay positive. You need to set goals and make them manageable. So don't set some goal that by the end of this year, you're going to have $12,000 just sitting in your bank account. Well, unless you already have $10,999 in your bank account, that might not be a realistic goal. You want to communicate these goals. You want to communicate your New Year's resolutions and your financial goals with other people around you and with yourself by writing them down, keeping them somewhere that you can focus on. And always remember, don't be too hard on yourself. So you're setting these goals, you're setting these New Year's resolutions, and there's going to be a setback. There's going to be a setback if you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to exercise, if you're trying to, become the hiking, you want to hike Mount Everest, you might twist your ankle, sprain your ankle, you're going to have a setback. Same thing goes with your money. You say, oh, I want to save this X amount of dollars, or I want to stop spending here, or you're going to run into problems during the year that you can't predict. And today I want to know, do you have any New Year's resolutions, and what are they? And if you wouldn't mind putting those in the chat box, and I can share them with other people. Maybe a lot of you today are looking towards building a better financial picture. Maybe you want to get in shape. Who knows what your New Year's resolutions are? I know that budgeting and saving are usually always in my overall plan, my goal for the year. Someone joining today says that one of their New Year's resolutions is to get out of debt. Well, that is something hopefully budgeting will help you accomplish. Let's see. What are the benefits to budgeting? Someone is saying eliminate credit card debt. Ooh, that's a good one. Let's see what else. Get out of debt and start a new hobby. I like that one. Everyone needs a new hobby. I recently decided to start making more wallets. Someone says, I don't make resolutions and believe that if someone wants to make changes, they shouldn't wait until January. I would say that is great advice. Why wait till January? You're right on that one. It should be something that's always at the forefront of your mind, trying to be better, I guess you could say, working towards getting out of debt, working on these goals. Someone said one of their New Year's resolutions is increase my 401k contribution this year. That is a good one, because one of your financial goals should be retiring, because who wants to work forever? I mean, there are some people who work and work and work and they really enjoy it. And I really enjoy what I do. But even I, down the road, would like to retire. So what are the benefits to budgeting? You want control over your finances. You will set financial goals, organize your spending, and plan ahead for what you want, like increasing your 401k contributions, or getting out of debt, or eliminating credit card debt. All of those things help you. All of this list right here with budgeting can help you achieve those goals. So this is what a basic budget worksheet looks like. This is included in today's handouts. It is completely fillable. It's a PDF. And if you can't download it, just let me know. I will make sure that I can get that to you. It's also on our website under the consumer education page. So occc.texas.gov. You can download it right there if you're having any problems downloading it during this webinar. It also goes over, on that first page, it showed, what is it? It showed your financial goals right off the top. So having goals really helps to give you a clear financial picture. Then you're going to calculate your income. And then it has a whole spreadsheet on your expenses. So you'll see that it has your receipts, your credit card and bank statements. You're going to go over these and you're going to see what you're putting into each of these categories. And it's a long list, and you might need to add, a few things here or there. Under miscellaneous, there's an other. Under personal, there's an other. So you can put other things like that on your monthly expenses for your budget. What are these budget categories specifically? Well, housing is your rent or mortgage, but it also includes things like your property taxes and your homeowners or your renter's insurance. So those are things you want to factor into your housing expenses. Transportation, we're going to include your car maintenance. Like I had to get my oil changed last week. your gasoline, public transportation expenses, and parking. Then utilities, we're always going to remember electric, water, gas, trash, and cell service. Insurance is going to cover things like health insurance, life insurance, and car insurance. And you want to make sure you're thinking about things as you're building your budget and looking over your receipts. Don't overlook anything. Your food, not only are there groceries that you're buying, but it's going to cover eating out. And I will tell you that eating out really cuts into my budget. At the end of a long day with 2 small children, I don't always want to stand and cook dinner. Then you want to include entertainment, fun things like Netflix, movies, bowling, all those fun things that we used to love to do, and hopefully they're coming back slowly but surely. And I think also, people really moved into Disney, Prime, all of these things that you're paying either monthly, yearly. You've got all the cable, all the network network stations are now own channels, so that's something else that you need to include in entertainment. Miscellaneous, extra funds for things like, we had a really rough year at my house with our pets. They were all aging pets. So we had a lot of things come up that we needed to cover because we had some aging pet problems. Personal spending, clothing, shoes. I got 2 little ones who both have birthdays at the end of February and March. Someone says they've lost audio. Does anyone else have an audio problem today? Just let me know if you're having any issues. It says that my audio is fine on my end. So hopefully it comes back. Oh, it's back. And when we're talking about, also when you're building your budget, pay yourself first. And you might think, oh, but I got to pay my mortgage first. Well, when we say pay yourself first, we're not saying, chunk aside half your paycheck for your savings account or debt repayment. We're talking, a few dollars here or there, something that you can feasibly handle. And that's why budgeting is not an overnight process. You need to look at what you've done and where you are, and then work on it first before you dive right in. Charitable causes. That's another thing. If you're really into giving and you have a charity that you always give to, you need to make sure you're putting that in your budget somewhere. So I have a polling question right out the gate. I want to know, which monthly expenses do you already budget? And this might seem like oh, well, of course I do my rent, my mortgage, I do this, I do that. But maybe you're not budgeting at all, and you don't have an answer to this question. For me, I budget all of these things, of course. Mortgage, insurance, especially car insurance, the car payment and childcare, all of these with 2 little ones, all of these are all at the top of my, right out the gate, what I track every single month, every day. I have a calendar on my phone that has all my bills out. And so when a new month starts, I look at it and I can see where I need to be, and I check off done as soon as it gets done. So let's see how everyone is stacking up today. 81% of you say your mortgage or rent, you're already budgeting for that, so that's great. 6% say insurance, and 13% say your car payment. So a lot of you already have some idea of things that you're budgeting, and it might seem, oh, someone said they're budgeting all expenses and they're budgeting their student loans too. Yes, student loans can be a big one for some people. I know I have a friend who pays over $600 a month for student loans. It's crazy. So it's definitely something that you want to keep in your budget and look ahead every month if it's taking up that much of your money. Someone says that they use all expenses using the Dave Ramsey app. So they use the Dave Ramsey app to track their expenses. And that one has come up a lot. And so that's why I'm asking during today's webinar, since You know, I'm not going to sit here and preach to you about certain apps. I'm not going to tell you about definite ways that you have to do things. But if you have suggestions, I'd really like to hear them, and so that everyone can hear those and I can share them with you guys. So how do you know what to put in each category? And you might think, well, you know, duh, of course, you look at what the categories are, you just fill in the blanks. But you need to review all of your receipts. And maybe you're not getting receipts right now. So make sure you're reviewing your credit card or bank statements as well to see what you're spending in all the different categories on a regular basis. You know, you might have a bad month where you're spending way more in one category than you are in the other category. But if you look back, like look over December, look over the next 30 days, whenever the last time it was, you got a notification from your bank and said, here's your new statement. Look at that statement line by line and put the different things in all the different categories, okay? And then you're kind of going to have a clear picture as to what's going forward. But what's going forward, for instance, you know, like I mentioned, my oil change, getting your car registration, things like that. So you've got to be able to also include those in your miscellaneous. What you're going to do is you're going to gather all your fixed monthly bills and calculate the total. Fixed monthly bills. Someone mentioned student loans. That's going to go into your fixed monthly bills. Even if it fluctuates a few cents here or there, that's something that you know is going to pay. It's going to need to be paid off until it's paid, you know, till it's gone. So your mortgage and your rent, your car payment, your car insurance, student loans, these are all things that are fixed and that you can count on every month needing to be done and needing to be paid. Then you want to estimate your variable monthly bills. This is probably where your bank statement and your credit card statements are really going to play a big role in figuring this out. We're talking about your personal spending, your entertainment, your miscellaneous spending, and your food. And for me, like I mentioned, I could probably guesstimate how much I'm going to spend at the grocery store each month. But I cannot guesstimate how much I'm going to spend eating out, because at the end of the day, sometimes I don't want to cook. So what you want to do is you want to track first and then budget, because it's going to be easier. So that's why you either want to look back at your previous bank statement and what you spent that month, or take this next month and on a daily track what you're spending. So if you're not collecting receipts, you want to maybe pull out that old checkbook register that you need to dust off because you haven't used a checkbook or a check in ages. I actually carry my checkbook, but that's because, for one thing, at daycare, I write a check because I don't want to pay an extra fee to use a card. So I always have my checkbook, but I've gotten away from writing down things in a checkbook registry. So that's one avenue that you could use, or an Excel spreadsheet, or any number of apps that are out there to help you budget, or the budget that I've included. Our other question today is, how much do you think you spend on extras? And extras, not your mortgage, not your rent. Give it a realistic idea, because this is something you don't really want to be surprised when you sit down to budget. I'm sure that in my house, we're probably somewhere 40 to 60, I want to say, because, you know, it kind of goes up. You know, I went and bought everyone shoes recently, and of course they were on clearance, and the store is having an additional 20% off clearance, so I kind of lucked out there. But that was an expense that I wasn't really counting on, so it kind of will fall into that category of extras, and it really increased my the percentage of money that I'm spending in that category. So it looks like 7% of you say 60%. You know, we want to get a little bit lower than that. 71% says 40%, and 21% of you say 10%. That, you guys in that 10% category, y'all are rocking it, okay? When it comes to not spending a ton on extras and Miscellaneous, you guys are rock stars. I will tell you that, because that is a hard pill to swallow right there. Let's see. Hopefully everyone can see our next slide. Budgeting strategy. And you always got to stick with me with technology, right? So there are different types of budget strategies. For instance, there is percentages, the 50-20-30, the 80-20, and zero-based budgeting. I fall in between the zero-based budgeting, really, and budget percentages, but probably more of the zero-based budgeting. I want to see where every dollar is going. Here's what percentages look like. So 25 to 30% on housing, 10 to 15%. And this looks a lot like the budgeting categories that you saw earlier. And it is, I mean, it is the same slide, but this is also about percentages. And so you see how the percentages go back and forth, where on the left side of the screen, it's going to be your necessities, your needs, things that need to happen. And on the right side of the screen, there's your entertainment, your miscellaneous, your personal spending, your savings, your giving. Because those are the categories that are going to fluctuate depending on the left side of the screen. Ratio techniques such as the 50-30-20, 50% goes towards your needs, 30% goes towards your wants, and 20% goes to savings and debt repayment. Debt repayment falls with savings because as you're paying off your debt, ideally that's increasing, you know, your savings. It's increasing the money you're keeping in your pocket, so to speak. The 80-20 budget is a simplified version of the 50-30-20, where it's just broken down into 20% savings and debt and 80% for everything else. Everything else. Zero-based budgeting, you balance your income and expenses down to zero. Every dollar has a purpose. It's the same idea as the envelope method, and that's where you physically take envelopes and put money in each of them, and that money is set aside for the different things that have to be taken care of. So it's going to be income minus expenses equals zero. I really do kind of fall in this category because I need to know where every single cent is going every month. So this is what a budget might look like for you. And you'll see that this is kind of going over the percentages that I just mentioned. And on this, you'll also notice that there is a student loan. So for our person who is, you know, working on students, budgeting their student loans, we had to decrease in personal spending and miscellaneous. And I've had people say, oh, you know, I'm really struggling with budgeting. I'm having problems every month, and I've decreased my spending and decreased my spending, and I have a second job and I don't know what else to do. And it's really hard because you've got to really cut back in these extra categories to make sure you're getting everything else that's necessary taken care of. And this is what the same budget looks like using the 50-30-20 and the 80-20. And you'll notice, just like in those other categories, it's not necessarily 50%. It's 52%. It's not necessarily 30%. It's 25%. And savings and debt repayment, 23%. Nothing is perfect. So you can't look at this and go, this box, it's black and white, and I have to hit these numbers exactly, because you don't want to cause more financial stress. When it comes to budgeting, when it comes to building credit, when it comes to doing these things for your financial outlook, it's to make things easier for you, not harder. And one of the things that will make it easier for you is debt repayment. Here's something called the debt snowball. Debt snowball means you're going to pay the minimum payment on everything, and any extra goes to the smallest balance. So regardless of that credit card or loan that has the higher interest rate, and you're like, oh, I just want it paid off, you focus on whatever has the lowest balance. Maybe it does have the highest interest rate, but maybe it has the lowest interest rate. You chunk away the extra money every month towards that small balance to get it out of the way. And that's what I like. I like the debt snowball because you're going to see more of an immediate success. And then there's the debt avalanche, which is paying the minimum payment on everything, and anything extra goes to the highest interest rate. Now, this is still, depending on what your balances are, but the highest interest rate. So what you're doing is you're knocking down the card that has the highest interest rate, because it's going to also have the highest interest rate charges. So whether you're using that credit card every month, if it has a high interest rate, those charges are going to be really bad. And so that is just going to keep your balance going up and up and up. So here you're just chucking away at that. You're getting rid of that high interest rate card. And so you just get it out of the way and get it done with. And you don't deal with those high interest fees and charges on that card, which is just making the balance stay up. Consolidate credit cards and consider balance transfers, but watch out for the fees. Think about this. If your bank, for instance, says, hey, consolidate with me, and you get 0% for 12 months. At the end of those 12 months, is your debt going to be paid off? Because if it's not, the little fine print will tell you what your interest rate and what your variable interest rate could be. And if you're not going to have that debt paid off in 12 months, it may not benefit you to consolidate to another card or a loan or whatever, if it's not going to be taken care of in that time period, that time frame. If you haven't already stopped using credit cards, you need to. And you also need to stop using other debt to finance living expenses. You don't necessarily need everything you see and everything you want. So if for some reason you're using credit cards to make ends meet at the end of the month, especially for me being a state employee, I only get paid once a month. So by the end of the month, things kind of roll around. You're like, oh, and it gets tight. And you need gasoline and you need groceries and you need those things, right? So you need to look at what you have been spending in your miscellaneous and extras. And that could be the reason why you're whipping out that credit card to make ends meet. You want to allocate extra money for debt repayment. This also has to do with, sorry, someone in the chat box says, isn't it safer to use a credit card for online purchases? Now, what I would say to that is, I know someone who has had identity theft 3 times, and it's been against their bank account. So I would say if you have between using your debit card that's linked to your checking account, your savings account, in theory, using a credit card that's a totally separate account of its own, that's probably a little bit safer when it comes to identity theft. But it's not going to be that much safer, because if you think about it, it still has your same information. It has your address, it has your phone number, it has your other personal information linked to that credit card. So it's just going to be a matter of whether or not it's safer for online purchasing is knowing that you are using that card on an accredited site and it's not someone contacting you. And I have a whole webinar on avoiding financial exploitation that actually goes over that. Someone said, thank you for talking about avoiding using credit cards for things that aren't really needed, just wanted. Yes, and you know what, I'll go back on that one, because I will admit that when I left my parents' house and started my first job, and I was only making $25,000, and I thought that was a whole lot that year. I will tell you that I put more than one pair of pretty shoes on a credit, and it racked up a lot of debt. So that is something you really got to fight the urge to do. Debt repayment is, not using credit cards to finance extras. And when it comes to allocating extra money, we are also going to talk about suggestions for that. So if you have any suggestions for anyone about making extra money, like maybe I think a lot of people, I think one time somebody said they use Mercari, to sell stuff, Poshmark. One of the things you can do for payment is asking for lower interest rates. And you might have just given me a laugh at that moment, like who's going to offer me lower interest rates? But the thing is, it happens. It may not happen for everyone, and you always have to remember it doesn't hurt to ask. What is someone going to say? Yes or no? That's it. They're just going to say yes or no. And so go ahead and ask for the lower interest rate. We keep getting notifications about refinancing. And so with the mortgage, refinancing the mortgage. And I'm going, oh, is it really going to be as good as it on paper? Just to do a point of a percentage difference. And so I just kind of question that. Someone says, what is the best way to ask for a lower interest rate and who specifically? Well, when we talk about that, we're talking about whoever you can contact customer service for any of your loans that you have, for any of your banking needs, for any of your credit cards. You can actually call and ask them. I called Capital One way back in the day when I had a card with them. I actually called them and asked them to work with me to lower my interest rate because I had signed up for something over the phone, not knowing, this is 10 years ago. I didn't know better. And it had a really bad interest rate. And so, but I called them and they were willing to say, okay. And they were able to make some adjustments to help and to lower that interest rate because I was paying it on time. And so that's what I mean by asking for a lower interest rate. Call the people you're already working with. I kind of have also fallen into that where if we have a car payment and it's crazy and I see another bank with a really better, like a lot better interest rate, I jump ship real quick and see if that bank will take my car loan so I can pay the lower interest rate. Suggestions for increasing income. Does any suggestions out there for increasing income? Are there any apps that you use? Are there any second jobs that you would suggest? One of the first things you can do is check your paycheck for deductions. Do you have any optional deductions coming out of your paycheck that you could eliminate? And are your tax withholdings appropriate? So make sure, I know that I know people who always do like just an extra $20, $30 out of their paycheck to put towards their tax withholdings. So that's something you need to check on if you're really struggling to make ends meet. Someone in the box says donate plasma. That is a big one right now, donating plasma. That's a way to increase income. But what you should do with that money is use it to pay down debt or put it in your savings account, not to help with your monthly expenses, your day-to-day living. Are all members of your household who can work, are they chipping in? So are they helping to make things easier? If anyone in your household has a side job, I guess, or a job, are they contributing to groceries? Are they contributing to the rent? Are they contributing to the electric bill? They're using electricity and they're using water, so make sure they're pitching in. Do you have any talents where you could increase income on the side, like sewing and crafting and bookkeeping? These are just examples. I'm pretty crafty. During the pandemic, I've made masks. Some I've sold, some I haven't. It just kind of depends. It ebbs and flows. A lot of them have been gifted. Do you qualify for government benefits? That's something you should look into. You might not realize, depending on your household, what you qualify for. Can you get a part-time job? There are a lot of those. When I think of part-time jobs right now, I think of delivery services. There are so many delivery services out there. And so that's something you could do on the side in your spare time if you have spare time. Consider selling what you don't need. This is something, working from home, I think this one's really hit home with me because I look around and go, oh, do we really need all that? And as my kids are getting older, I go through their stuff and I've sold it, I've donated it just to get it out of the house, because as we're spending more time in the house, I don't want all this stuff around. What about decreasing your expenses? So all this goes into budgeting and building wealth. Decreasing your expenses, for instance, grocery shop alone, I will tell you I spend so much more when my husband goes with me. Use curbside if you can, or delivery if you can. Curbside or delivery, depending on who you're shopping with, there's going to be added fees there. But is that $5 fee the same as the extra $30 you would spend in the physical store? Carry a lunch to work, so you're not eating out. This is a big one. I do this. I do this not only because I just don't like the added, time that it takes to leave my office, go get something, come back. I just want to get it done. So I have a lot of heat and eat ready to go. I just stick it in the microwave and call it a day. Entertain at home, which a lot of us are probably still doing. Shop at the end of the season. I found out this summer that from one of my mom friends that Target and Walmart in the summer do this crazy clearance on toys, and I had to go down a black hole internet in order to find this information, and they do it all the time. So what she does, since she has a large extended family, she buys all kinds of stuff in the off season and then puts it away, knowing that she's got a lot of nieces and nephews that are going to have birthdays, and there's Christmas, and there's, all kinds of holidays. There's everything she's going to need a gift for, and she just has them aside, and she doesn't have to spend nearly as much as when everyone is fighting for it at the store. Someone said that they create a meal plan before shopping. And that is something that's also going to save you some money, because you're not just randomly picking up things. You are making a conscious effort to think about the things that you need in your grocery, in your refrigerator, in your pantry, so that you can make meals throughout the week. So not only are you spending less money by making meals at home, but you're also spending less money by specifically putting the items that you need for those meals on your grocery list. So it's a twofold right there when it comes to decreasing your expenses. Also, reduce spending in categories that are not necessities. So housekeeping services, club memberships, gym memberships, donating time instead of money. So volunteer with some of the charities that you might be interested in. Cut extra cable channels. I'm not a cable person at all. We have Android at my house because there were so many things I didn't need. Now, that does not say I don't have Netflix or I don't have any other streaming service. But those things yearly, and even if they're on a yearly, you could do yearly services. And if you do a monthly service, those monthly services for streaming tend to be a lot lower than paying for 500 cable channels that you don't even watch. And like it says, you can always add stuff back later, and that's true. A lot of times, hopefully, gyms, if you've been a client there, maybe they won't charge you a new membership fee. I know right now with January, you see all those gym membership ads because it's January. So it's something to consider. You can always pick it up the next year when it's lower. If your after-tax pay isn't enough to cover all your expenses, you need to adjust those categories we've been talking about this morning. When your income increases, don't increase your spending. Stick to the same budget. This one has to do, to me, I really think about if you get a raise or promotion at work. Set up a direct deposit for whatever that money is, and it automatically goes into a separate account, a separate savings account. And you want to make that account totally separate from what I call your working account. My working account is what we're paying the mortgage out of. It's what we're paying the bills out of. It's what, all of the monthly expenses come out. And then we have a separate account, different bank, different everything. And that's where the extra money gets stored away. Those are my little rainy day fund, my, all those little things go into that extra account. Pay off debt and save extra money. Someone said they wanted to pay off their credit cards this year. That's a good one. You want to pay off that debt and save that extra money. So once you do get those credit cards paid off this year, put that money into your savings account. And then you could reward yourself, next January, go, hey, I paid off all my credit cards and here's all the money I saved in the savings account, and take yourself on vacation. Prevent late payments. You might say 1 month, oh, this late payment doesn't matter, but late payments are going to add up. And if you get into a habit of it, a bad financial habit of making late payments, this also is kind of like that cyclical, using credit cards to make ends meet every month. That late payment is eventually going to start adding up. That late payment, it's $12 this month, but then it's $12 next month. Well, it's $24 in late payments just in 2 months. That's really going to add up in a year. Saving money for emergencies or paying more than the minimum on credit cards and loans. This is something that's a big deal when it comes to budgeting. This is something you want to be doing regularly. You want to also remember expenses you pay less frequently when you're building your budget. So when you're sitting down and you know the things that you pay all the time and it has a set amount, your mortgage, your rent, car insurance, car payment, these things, you also want to factor in tax payments and registration. So as we go into budgeting, do you have any short-term, intermediate, or long-term goals when it comes to finances? I do. I definitely have, gosh, I probably have something in every category. And so you may not have even thought about it before today. You're like, well, I haven't really given it much thought. But be surprised what these goals are. It could be anything. It could be the fact that you want a new car. It could be the fact that you want to add a deck on your back porch. That's one of my financial goals. Let's see how everyone's stacking up today. 87% of you say yes. Yes, you have financial goals. And you know what? That's great. Those financial goals are going to help you budget. They're going to help you build your credit. And they're going to help you build your own personal financial wealth. Now, for the 13% that say no, well, maybe you just haven't really thought about it before today. Or maybe you're really fortunate. You have everything you could ever want or need. Oh, someone says goals, buy new clothes. I actually need some. You know what? I know exactly how you feel about that. I tried on a pair of pants right before this webinar to see if the few pounds that I have lost were fitting, and I was like, but I understand what that means, especially working from home. I feel like my clothes have consisted of sweatpants. But I did buy new tennis shoes this week. Like I said, I bought new shoes for everyone, and that cut into my miscellaneous spending, but I had a budget for it. So, I see. She doesn't often spend money on personal stuff like new tennis shoes. Well, you know what? Sometimes you need to. Let's see what someone else has a comment. Wow, someone says, I have started making a double payment each month for a high interest rate loan. You know what? And it has a sad face. Well, you know what? It should be a happy face. Because yeah, the high interest loan is no fun at all. But the fact that you are doubling down and making that payment, you're doing great. And you're going to get that taken care of. And you need to be motivated towards that. And I hope you have that. We're going to talk about writing down goals in this next section. And that is what that is about. Yes, you're dealing with the high interest rate loan, but the fact that you're able to make double payment each month, I say you get a round of applause for that one, okay? Today we're going to talk about what building wealth means to you. So what does it mean to you? It doesn't necessarily mean the big house on the hill, but it could mean saving for unexpected life events. It could mean, saving for retirement. Our person today who's wanting to make extra contributions to our 401k. This is building wealth. It's like filling up your love bucket, so to speak, and so you want to fill that up, and so you can look forward to where you're going. And I realized that I did not hide our poll right there, but that's okay. So we're going to talk about building wealth, and you'll see my little image here. This is where I was talking about retirement. This is where I was talking saving for unexpected expenses, because these are the things that will make you wealthy, financially secure, and hopefully decrease your financial stress. Finances can be really stressful. So what is building wealth? Building wealth really just means your assets minus your liabilities equals your net worth. And you might be thinking, I don't have any net worth, but that's not true. You probably have something somewhere that is worth something to someone else, and that is an asset. Liabilities, of course, it's money that you owe, and it's the same as your debts, of course, your credit cards, your loans, all of those things go into your liabilities, and then your net worth is going to be the difference of those two. When I looked at this next little sheet right here, this balance sheet that shows you, it lists the different assets you could have, it lists your liabilities, I realized that where it says market value of a car, when we sold our last house, we paid off one of our vehicles. And that goes into my asset. And I've never really thought about the fact that I own a car, not to say that we don't have another car that has a car payment, but I own a car that's paid off, and it's an asset. It has a Kelley Blue Book value to it. So that goes into my asset bucket. And so the goal is to fill up that bucket to help with your net worth. And we're going to talk about goals when it comes to budgeting, when it comes to building wealth. Whether or not you have a goal, whether or not you're working towards a goal, there's short-term goals that take less than a year. There are intermediate goals that are 1 to 4 years, and long-term goals which take 4 years or longer. And so your short-term goals, you may think like small household repairs, like fixing the sink in my bathroom. I really need to do that. That's also a time goal, not necessarily financial one. A down payment on a vehicle, or an extended vacation, or major home repairs. Those take 1 to 4 years. That's where the new deck on the back of my porch comes into play. A down payment on a house, buying a new boat, retirement. Those are long-term goals, especially retirement, because you want to put as much in that retirement bucket as you can so that you can live comfortably when you retire. So budget and your goals equals building wealth. And wealth is such a funny word. You might think of someone being wealthy because they have everything money can buy. But, wealth it covers so many things. There are people who are wealthy in love. There are people who are wealthy in their job because they're happy. So that's where that comes in. That's why it's important to know what your goals are for building wealth and what your goals are for budgeting. And when it comes to budgeting and building wealth, you want to achieve your financial goals. This goes back to our New Year's resolutions and achieving those resolutions. You want to write down your goals and make them visible and be specific. That's why I say the person who is making the double payment each month on a high interest rate, you write that down. You see that every month. You are That is a financial goal, because by making that double payment, you're going to have that interest rate, that loan paid off faster if you were just making the minimum payment. You write that down and you be specific and you make that goal achievable. And it sounds like you are making that goal achievable. How much will it cost you to make your financial goal? Not just the monetary cost. You want to consider your support system and the sacrifices that might be necessary to achieve that goal. You know, I might have different financial goals than my husband has, and I want to make sure that we're on the same page. So we're going to share these goals, we're going to write them down, and about, you know, the sacrifices that he might have to make as well as I. Communicate your goals, rank them in an order that makes sense to you, and share them with your family. And your goals might just be like, let's say you have 5 credit cards and you rank them. I'm going to do the debt snowball. So you're going to rank them in order of balance. You know, balance at the top. And you're going to chip away at that credit card and make the minimum payment on everything else. And you're going to keep going down the list until you get each one of those paid off. That is a financial goal, and you need to see it to achieve it. You want to establish a timeline for these goals. You know, maybe a year isn't long enough. You know, maybe you need 18 months, maybe you need 2 years to achieve these goals. So for example, if your goal is to save $1,000 for a new car down payment over the next 18 months, you're going to need to set aside roughly $56 a month. In my house, with 2 kids and my husband, that's like eating out 1.5 times. So that's a lot. I mean, that's not a lot, actually. You know, should say, oh, but then I would physically take that money that you're not spending on eating out 1.5 times and put it aside in a different account. Maybe put it in an envelope. I notice when I take out cash and put it in my wallet just to have some kind of cash on me for some reason, it is hard for me to break that 20. You know, for some reason, the physical aspect of having cash, it's almost harder to spend it. Nowadays, you know, they want exact change anyway, so it really might be harder to spend it if you're physically taking that money out of your account. You want to be flexible and keep your eye on the prize. This goes back to don't be too hard on yourself. If something arises that you weren't counting on, you might have to reset and set a compromise. For instance, I mentioned earlier, we've had aging pets this last year, and they had expenses, and we had to take care of those costs, and we weren't expecting it. You know, they were relatively healthy until 2020. And so we really had to deal with that, and we really had to come up with the money to cover their care. And so that's the thing. Remember, the goal setting process works not only for your finances, but for your career, your self-improvement, your education, and your overall wellness. While you're working towards, while you're working towards setting your financial goals, while you're working towards your budget, while you're working towards building your credit, whatever you're working towards, it's all going to make you feel better, and it's going to help with consumer confidence for one thing, and that really gives you a real big boost to your overall confidence. I will tell you that when we bought our last car, I knew exactly what I wanted. I knew exactly what I could handle, and it wasn't up to the guy at the dealership telling me, oh, well, let's send this out and see what we can do. And I said, no, we're not going to send this out and see what we can do. We're going to come up with a number that I agree to pay, and then we'll talk about loans and percentages and all of that, because I know where I stand. So budgeting can help you do more than figure out your monthly bills. It's going to ease the impulse to cash crunch. That's where we go back to using credit cards to make ends meet. It's going to help you save money. It's going to heal your credit score, hopefully. You know, once you get debt paid off, that looks great. That payment history every month looks great on your credit report. It's going to save you time and stress, and it's going to help you take control of your finances. And that's where budgeting comes in. Having control of your finances, not having that every month, oh my gosh, you know, I can't make ends meet. I'm so stressed out. What am I going to do? You're going to build a budget. That's what you're going to do. You're going to set financial goals. You're going to work towards being financially fit for you. Okay. This is for you. It's not for anyone else. And that's what you're going to do. And you're going to remember to take them baby steps at a time. I'm Andrea Johnson. I am the financial educator for the Office of Consumer Credit Commissioner. I really enjoyed our time today. I've really enjoyed everyone's insight. If you have any questions that you need answered, you want me to direct you to anything else, email me financial-education@occc.texas.gov. You can follow me on Facebook at Texas Financial Education Endowment and on Twitter at Financial Ed Texas. This has been a great webinar today. I really enjoyed everyone's involvement. This will be recorded and you can have access to that video later. And I hope everyone has a great day. Happy New Year, and take a little time to take care of yourself, okay? Bye, everyone.